Hello, everyone, and welcome to Build 2026. How was the keynote for you all? My name is Mario Rodriguez, and I lead product for GitHub. I love developer conferences. They're a little bit unstructured. They're nerdy. You have the fresh code baking and that fresh smell of code always in the air. And today what we wanted to do, we wanted to kind of live to that as well. We're going to spend most of the time in demos. We have a saying in GitHub, demos, not memos, and that's what we want to do. But before we do that, I do want to set the stage for all of us. The first thing that I wanted to talk through, and let's see if this one, if the slides work, the pointer, no? All right. So maybe we'll do it like this then, and then we'll go back and forth overall. The first thing that I wanted to start with is, since January, something happened, and that is agents entered the workforce. And now it's really working. Let's test this really quick. We'll go back, and then we go forward. All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Agents entered the workforce, and they started really working. Before, you would macro delegate to an agent, and what happened is you had to constantly be telling it, well, you got this thing wrong, you got this thing wrong, you got this thing wrong. But since December and going into January and February, what we started seeing it is that you could macro delegate to it, and you only had to micro steer the agent. You could just go and say, fix this issue. You worked a little bit on the spec and the plan before that, but you could go ahead and delegate. And that meant a complete new way of working. It meant that I could spend more time as a developer on the creativity, on the judgment overall. And I could start delegating more into my agents. It also meant that code review got better, and I could start getting better and better feedback from Copilot. It also meant that these agents can deploy with the right guardrails into production and even debug live issues as well. So they're entering the entirety of what we used to call the SDLC. And I think the SDLC is more or less dead. It's merging with the product development lifecycle, but it is no longer what we used to know. Because it's really about this human and agent collaborating with each other. And that change also meant that now you have to understand, okay, if I'm doing all of this work, what's getting in the way of shipping? So why is it that maybe my velocity is not as high, and what can I do to prepare to a world where you're doing more of that macro delegation and that micro steering, where your velocity is increasing 10x, 20x, 100x, and when you're really exercising anything your imagination can become a reality. Now, this change necessitates a system, and that system is important. And it's not a simple one, actually. Like if you sit down and ask yourself, what does an agent, or what does agents overall need from something like GitHub? What does GitHub need to evolve to? Because clearly GitHub was, at its core, is developers, but it was meant about that human-to-human collaboration. And now we're evolving it into this human and agent collaboration. So what are the core pillars? What are the primitives that it needs? And this is what we have been obsessing about. And we think it actually divides across surfaces. So of course, you need many surfaces because that's where you, as a developer, do your work. You have IDEs, you have the command line. We just launched the GitHub Copilot app. There's many places, including your phone, where you're now actually interacting with them. Now, after that, they also need a runtime. They need a safe place for them to execute, some place that is trusted both locally and in the cloud. You saw some of those announcements in the keynote today with 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃 overall. Then they need automation. You want to go in, and sometimes I describe this to people like a 3D printer. I do my CAD drawing, and I just put it in the 3D printer, and it gives me an object back. There's a little bit of, I would say, control that I will have to exercise that. And specifically, I have to verify that what I actually got at the end is what I want. And sometimes there's defects, and I have to throw that piece away and then do it again. But I need automations, because automations is what actually makes the whole system more predictable at the end. And it's what allows us to scale overall. The whole move in our industry to CI, which is continuous integration and continuous delivery, that was a movement of automation. DevOps and DevSecOps was a movement of automation as well. And we do not anticipate this will be different either. Then you need quality. You need that verification. You need a system that verifies at the end that what your intent was, that CAD drawing, ended up being that object, or in this case, software that you end up shipping. Then you need memory or a system that has continuous intelligence improving itself. And of course, if we're going to be doing this, you need it with enterprise trust and scale. So these are the pillars of a new platform that we're creating. We're calling that the agent-native engineering system. This system expands from Surface into enterprise, but we're going to go deep in each one of them and make it agent-native and agent-first, which then necessitates a brand new set of APIs, brand new set of UX that would eventually become agentic experiences, in my opinion. It necessitates a brand new way of us actually doing automations as well, because you're going to be doing it not only with the power of agents, but also with predictability too. And that's a hard problem to solve at scale. Now, I'm excited about this, but again, like I said at the very beginning, I really want to make this about demos, not memos. So what we're going to start with is showing you that new GitHub Copilot app. And we're going to walk you through how we use it, not only within our team, but how we envision you using it. Now, this is going to be a little bit of the frontier. Some of the things in here you're going to be able to do on an application that is greenfield. Sometimes it's going to be harder for you to do some of these practices on something that is legacy or mainframe, and you're going to move at that speed overall. But my hope is that it encourages you into that curiosity at the end to really look about what is the future of software development when you think through it in an agent-first, agent-native way. And with that, I want to welcome Evan Boyle into the stage. He's co-creator of this, and he leads the engineering team of the Copilot CLI, Copilot SDK, and also the Copilot app. So please welcome him.
Hey, folks. All right. Thanks for having me here. So the first thing I want to talk about, the Copilot app is not just another session manager, right? Most tools help you create lots and lots and lots of parallel work. The Copilot app is built to help you finish that work, right? It's not about implementation. That's not the interesting part. It's all of the meta work that goes into delivering value to your users, right? Issue triage, implementation as well, but getting through CI, keeping it green, responding to review feedback, merging it, getting that deployed to your customers. But first, I have to level with you a little bit and set up some context for what you're going to see here. So I am a major, major procrastinator when it comes to tedious things specifically that I don't want to do. Show of hands, who is the same? OK, so 60% of you in the room are telling the truth, and the other 40% are lying. All right, so my problem, when I have this tedious thing that I don't want to do, I end up procrastinating in a very productive way, right? I build a new primitive into the GitHub app. Unfortunately, it takes about 10 times as long to do that as it would have if I would have just done the task, right? But the upside for all of you sitting here in the room and millions of other engineers is like next time you run into the tedious task, you don't have to do it, right? All right. Well, everything you're about to see is basically the product of me procrastinating and trying to get out of work. So the promise of agents, right? That we can do more. I think we really need to pivot that conversation, though. It's not about doing more. It's about finishing more, right? It's about reclaiming your focus. And it's about outcomes, right? Not all of this activity. Like, do you actually deliver the thing? Do you make your users, your customers, their lives better? All right. I'm going to kick off here. And you can see I have a nice little inbox here on the homepage. But I have a very customized view of this inside of my work. So I've got public issues inside of our GitHub app repo. We just launched this, and we have oodles and oodles of feedback coming in. So I can filter down here And I saw an issue earlier today about the terminal and terminal canvas being missing from Quick Chat. And so I think, I want to kick off a batch of work all related to terminal improvements. It's helpful for me if I'm going to go off and kick off a bunch of agentic work, review that work, if it's all related, right? So I think I'm going to do that one, UI improvements, and then tab switching. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit Actions. And I can do new individual sessions. I can chat about these as a group to just kind of research and build context. And I can go fix all of them in one unified session. I'm going to go ahead and hit New Individual Sessions. Right away, you can see this kicked off 3 sessions in my left-hand nav. This is pretty cool, right? It's creating these isolated work trees. It's already attached that issue, right? So this context is now in my session. And the agent is going to go ahead and get started working, right? So this is cool. This is like the on-the-rails workflow. One size fits all. You can build your own views. You can kick off agentic pull request review. You can kick off issue sessions like this to go and create plans, diagnose things. But I want to talk to you about customization, right? All of us have our own workflows for how we want to be able to work. We want to be able to customize our tools. And we want to up-level our partnership with agents. So I want to show you something that the team and I built called canvases, and specifically this triage canvas. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about what canvases are. So when I start a session, I'm going to go ahead and say something like, let's see if voice is going to work here with this audio going on. So I would like for you to open the terminal canvas and run a web server that renders hello canvas, and then wait a second and open the web browser to render that page. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. What you're going to see here is the agent can drive everything on the right-hand side of the app, right? It can open my terminal for me. It can send commands. It can read the output. It can open the browser. It can do automated testing, right? So just a second here. We're going to see that pop up. Cool. Terminal's up. Sending the command.
And here we go.
Live demos. There we go. It wrote the server. It's running this Python web server. In just a second here, it should go ahead and open up my web page. OK, it's doing a little bit of extra verification.
Woohoo! There you go.
All right, there we go. So this is cool, right? These are built-in surfaces within the app that the agent can drive. But there's a whole lot more, right? You can build these surfaces yourself. You can have the agent build your own surfaces that the agent can drive, and then when you interact with the agent, it can drive that UI back. So I'm going to say, open the triage canvas. And so this triage canvas is something that me and the team built. We checked into the .github repo, and it pulls up recent issues, top thumbs up issues, common themes, right? And I have these buttons here. I can go and run analyze sample. I have another one here. I'll kick off analyze sample. And so you can see, right, that clicking this button sent a message over to the agent, right? Giving it the instructions, hey, here's all the state for the issues that we've pulled in. I want you to go and create 5 to 8 feedback buckets. This is how me and the team sit down every day during stand-up and review what are our customers asking from us and what should we go and do. So if I go back to my Canvas example over here, the other cool thing is that I can kick off work from this too, right? I basically built my own custom version of that My Work issue view within the app. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start Session on a couple of these. And what you're going to see is that it's going to request the agent to create these subsessions, right? And so you can see this nesting going on here, right? I clicked, hey, go ahead and implement it. It's sending these messages, and then it's grouping my work for me. The reason why this works is that the GitHub app, create the session anyways. All right, here, we're going to go on autopilot mode. So what happened here was it used a create session tool, right? Everything that I can drive through the GitHub app, the agent can drive through the GitHub app, right? I can go in, spin up a session myself. I can also run agentic triage and then tell the agent, hey, I want 5 isolated work trees to go work on these 5 features. And then it groups them for me, right? In these sessions, they can talk back and forth to each other. So this is a great way to kind of manage context, to organize my work. But I want to show you what it looks like to create our own canvas, right? So we have this create canvas skill here. And I just want to hear from the audience. Can someone shout out what's something that you and your team do on like a daily or maybe weekly basis where you wish you had this sort of up-leveled partnership with the agent, right? Where you could go in and drive your stand-up based off of this full-screen board, right? So give me, someone shout it out, please. Whiteboard. Sorry, say it again? Whiteboard? Let's try it out. All right, I'm going to go back home. All right, we're going to go to Create Canvas, and we're going to say we want, well, I'm going to dictate this. All right, we want a whiteboard canvas that we can draw on. Ideally, we can click a button to, let's say, export to JPEG and publish it into a gist. And that's going to enable us to do whiteboarding sessions with our team during design meetings and then publish the artifacts afterwards onto GitHub. So this triggered the create canvas skill. This agent is aware of this extension model. So these extensions are authored dynamically. I'm going to go ahead and add a follow-up message that says, do it at the repo scope, because I know it's going to ask me about this. And then I'm going to go into autopilot mode. All right. And so this extension is going to be authored in my .github folder of my repo. I'm going to be able to check it in. All of my teammates who are working with this repo are now going to get this canvas. But this is going to take a couple of minutes. So I want to show you something else that's kind of cool. There's a bit of an ecosystem around these things. And, turns out it's pretty easy. I'm just going to say hello real quick just to kick off a new section. All right. Now that we have this session going, I can say install extension from gist or URL. And I just want to make sure I copy the right one. There we go. Oops. Install, project scope, paste in my extension. That loaded. So install the agentic Kanban board. So I'm going to go ahead and say, open the Kanban board. Boom. I have an agentic Kanban board now. If I like planning my work in this style where I'm breaking it down into subtasks and having agent add tickets onto the board for a bigger feature that I'm working on, if I'm a visual person, if this is how I like to model things, I can build this workflow for myself now. And then I can start, there we go. I can start a task, and it kicks off that work in the left-hand chat. So this allows you to kind of up-level your partnership with the agent. The agent can talk to these canvases. It can modify them. And then I can interact with the board and modify the agent. It's this rich bidirectional relationship. I can ask for changes live inside of here. So I could change the theming, and the agent will hot reload the extension. Super, super exciting, hyper-personalized software for your team's workflows, for your personal workflows. You can kind of build anything to your heart's content. Finally, with canvases, I'm excited to share that we're also launching a marketplace of these things, not just for the hyper-personalized, miniature versions of these, but for official first-party, third-party canvas extensions. This one, we've been working with Miro. And so it has this entire design architecture that we've been working on for our repo. All of this kind of feedback and sticky notes, like all of the rich features within Miro that you would expect, but agent-driven now, right? I can use the agent to make modifications to this, and then I can even go over here and start implementing something, right? And kick off the agent. So you're going to see many more of these official canvases coming from our partners soon. And we're excited to share more with you about the Canvas marketplace coming. So yeah, this is all about being able to customize your workflow. And kind of going back to what we're doing here. We're driving work. We're trying to get more done. We've started a lot of work, right? But I think we also need to talk about how do we continue that work from wherever you are. Being able to shut your laptop and go home. How many of you have ever felt this kind of this agent anxiety, right? 4:55 is rolling around, and you're working on that plan. You're trying to get it ready. You want to make sure that you get that agent working before you're ready to go home, and the clock is running out, right? Well, we want you to be able to shut your laptop and just go home, right? We don't want you to have to worry about these things. So that's why we built Copilot. There we go, let me bump that up. Copilot -- Cloud. This is built on top of GitHub Sandboxes, fast micro VMs that spin up in the matter of seconds. So I can go ahead and hit yes here. I'm going to say YOLO on. I'm going to switch into autopilot mode. Now I can kick off tasks, have them running in the cloud, and these sandboxes are stateful, right? Not only are they isolated, so if I have PRs that I want to test out in a safe environment where I can keep it separate from everything I have on my laptop, these things are locked down, credentials are tightly scoped, so I can go and I can test out those changes, or I can kick off a task and have it running all night, ready for me to come back to in the morning, and my laptop doesn't have to be connected to internet. But in terms of figuring out how to automate all of that tedious work, we're often working across many of these distinct surfaces. Like Copilot exists in .com, in the cloud agent. There's CCR. There's Visual Studio. There's Visual Studio Code. And these sessions, it can sometimes be hard to remember. What was I working on? Was I working on this thing in VS Code? Maybe I fixed a bug the other day. So I'm going to go ahead and say that. I fixed this. Let's see. So I'm going to say I fixed a rather gnarly Rust bug the other day. I can't remember exactly what it was, but help me figure it out. It's relevant to what we're about to do. And so I could just send this prompt, but we now have something called Chronicle. And so I can say Chronicle search, kick off that prompt, and what Chronicle is all of your sessions scoped to your user, private and only accessible to you, so that you can have continuity across all of your surfaces that you're working on, whether it's different machines, whether it's different GitHub Copilot products. Chronicle remembers everything that you've ever done, every session, every line of code, every prompt. And so this is going to go and it's going to crawl through. It's going to find the context around that Rust bug that I fixed, how I fixed it, what the issue was. It's going to load it into this session. And then I'm going to be able to get this job done a lot faster. But there are other ways that we can put Chronicle to use too. So I'm going to run Copilot again. And show of hands, how many of you are in stand-up meetings that you feel are, not super productive? Everybody's going around a room, talking too much detail, right? I'm sorry that many of you have managers that are still living in the 80s. For those of you that do, this is another way that you can eliminate your tedium. Since Chronicle remembers everything that you've worked on across GitHub, across all Copilot surfaces, I can go in and say, Chronicle, stand up. And so Chronicle is going to look at all the work that I did in the last 24 hours. And this is probably going to come back with a bunch of build prep, a bunch of bugs that I reported in the app, in the CLI while I was preparing for my demos. And you can see that the powerful thing about this is that the agent knows SQL, right? We expose a direct SQL API to the agent. That's how all of this is working, right? You can see these SQL queries executing. If I expand, right, you can see it's returning rich structured data. So the agent here is using a combination of full text search and structured SQL queries over this data lake that contains all of my sessions, right? Awesome. So, we've talked a lot about how do I find the right things to do? How do I enable the agent to drive itself, right? How do I productively sort of eliminate the tedium from my life? Be able to close my laptop, go home, go to my family, enjoy my evening, right? I think the last thing that we really need to talk about is getting work over the line, right? And so whenever I have a PR, like I have right here, I now have this button called Agent Merge, right? I'm going to go ahead and click Agent Merge, and it's going to get started. This is a PR that we had for adding some theming guidance to make canvases by default feel closer to the look and the feel of the app, right? And so what Agent Merge is going to do is periodically check in on my PR. It's going to look and see, are there merge conflicts? Is CI green? Do I have feedback either from an agent or from one of my coworkers that needs to be resolved? And it's going to make all of those changes until it's green and ready to go. And so let's go ahead and take a look at an example of the very first Agent Merge PR, right? So here we go. This is Jeremy, who created Agent Merge. And way back in the day, you can see this is March 19th. We've been working on this app for a while now. Jeremy added a CLI health check, and he sent me this PR. He was like, hey, go review this. We're testing out Agent Merge. I was like, all right. I started getting a little giggly, thinking maybe I can send this thing off the rails. Maybe I can break it. But you can see rounds of CCR feedback are coming in, right? And so CCR gave the overview. It gave a batch of 5 comments. And then, the agent, on behalf of Jeremy, came back and said, hey, I addressed all of this in this commit. Here's the link. Here's the rationale for all the things I fixed, all the things I didn't fix. It's going to go through, many more rounds of CCR feedback. And Jeremy's agent is just resolving all of this, right? Jeremy didn't send me this PR while it was still iterating on CCR. He set up Agent Merge, and he went and he got lunch. And while he was eating lunch, the Agent Merge took care of all of these CCR comments, right? Responding back to each thread tastefully with justifications, with what it did. And then only at that point does Jeremy send me the PR, right? He's protecting my attention, my focus. And so, I come in here and like any, good manager does, I say we really need to think about docs. This needs to be accessible for our users. Like, hey, if we're going to block them, we should give them a link. And, Agent Merge comes back and says, hey, dummy, did you read 2 lines below? It's already there, So it's not just blindly following. It's making good decisions. And then I say, you know what? I think I'm going to try and send this thing off the rails. And so I say, all right, this file's now over 1,000 lines. I suggest that you do a major, massive refactor, right? Agent Merge tells me, fair concern, but I'm not going to do that as a part of this change. And it merges the PR. So this is all about getting our attention back, right? Preserving your focus, right? You're generating work. The question that you need to ask yourself, are you using agents to get that work over the line, right? Are you focused on activity, or are you focused on output? Everything we're trying to do here in the GitHub Copilot app is about output. It's about bringing all of the pieces together. The engineering itself, the meta engineering that goes into building a high-quality product, understanding your customers, not doing 50 things at once, but doing a great job at the 5 to 10 that really, really matter.
Let's go check out the canvas.
Oh, we got to check out the canvas. All right.
We one-shotted this thing, so.
Whiteboard canvas. Oh!
There you go.
Oh! All right.
No, but I mean, we have to make it, if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Let's try to see if it actually does the gist. That would be amazing if we get that to work.
Publish to gist. Oop.
Did it do it?
It's doing something.
Oh, it did it. Go at the bottom. Go at the bottom.
Oh!
There you go.
Thank you, sir, for the suggestion. All right, back to you, Mario.
All right, awesome. We're going to keep it going. You saw a demo of everything. I do want to highlight two things that Evan showed because I think it's important. Number one is Sandbox. You need all of this power. You saw him do YOLO a bunch of times, and he only lives once, so that's the reality. But you need this with trust and with security. So right now, we have both a local sandbox story on public preview and also a cloud one. That's what he ended up doing with --cloud. We didn't show it in the Copilot app, but that's also going to be in the Copilot app. You're going to be able to just go ahead and delegate the sessions that we had locally and that beautiful canvas that we created in one shot all the way into that environment. And then you could really multiplex yourself, but feel safe, not feel like you're going to get pawned at any point in time or if information is going to leak overall. So that's number one. I think that's important to highlight. The other thing that we didn't touch, but we want to touch next, is on this concept of every and automations. You saw a little bit of the, actually, we didn't show the automations in the app, so maybe that's probably what we'll do next. OK, let's do that. Get it ready. Then we'll show the automations in the app, but there's more that we want to be doing. Like agent merge is a type of automation. It's an agentic automation that is running locally, but we could do this across the entirety of the SDLC. So let's go again to demos.
All right.
Hit one.
There we go. OK. So, we've talked about agents are supposed to save us time. But like, I want to see show of hands from all of you. Like, my read from all of the users that I talk to, everything I read on the internet, is that for a lot of teams, they've really done the opposite. They've created this like fire hose of noise. How many of you feel that way? Yes. All right, there we go. Again, 60% of the room. Well, I want to show you how I use agents to guard my focus, right? There's a lot going on. We launched this app. There's a lot of different feedback sources, public, private. We're across teams, Slack Connect channels. It's quite a lot to try and distill. And so every morning, I come in and I look at my automations. This is the first thing that I do. And I have this morning brief, right? Let's go ahead and look at this prompt here. So this runs at 6 a.m. every day for me. This one just runs locally on my machine. This one's just for me, right? So I ask it, create a morning brief for me. And then I can tell it what's important. PRs I have in flight that I need to get over the line. Critical PRs that have not been reviewed that I really should get some eyes on to unblock the rest of the engineers on the team. New issues that have come in, right? Things that are critical. All right. So this one ran. And look at this. My focus morning brief, right? Top 10 issues with links, details over the PRs I have in flight, and everything going on with the team that needs my attention. This is an awesome way for me to start my day with my first cup of coffee, focused, ready to go, right? But the great thing about these automations is they don't just have to run locally. Like this one runs locally. My team's never going to see the output. That's just private to me. But I can also create these automations in the cloud. So I'm going to call this one issue repo, repro. There we go. And I'm going to do this in response to issue created. And let's go ahead and dictate this. Select a project. We're going to do the private GitHub app repo. So this is where all of the GitHub employees are providing their feedback, their bug reports, in addition to stuff that ends up in the public tracker. So I want you to go ahead and try and reproduce this bug report. If this issue is a bug report, I want you to try to write a failing test case. That failing test case is going to help me verify that this is in fact an issue and not ghosts in the GPUs, okay? If you are able to write a failing test case and confirm that this is actually an issue, I want you to add a label that indicates this. And then finally, I want you to add a comment to the issue that describes that repro, the repro steps, and the test case, ideally, verbatim, that we should write, and then go and make green. So I'm going to hit create. So that automation is now created in the cloud, and my team is going to be able to have a more focused list of work to go and chase down, right? If there are critical bugs, and by the time we see them, there's already a repro, fixing them is usually trivial. Any of you who have worked in open source software know this painfully, painfully well. You love those users who come to you with deeply detailed, well-specified repros. And if I go back to the My Work tab, and I switch this state over to, let's go over to GitHub app. I'm going to hit new issue in GitHub app, and I'm going to call this bug app won't start. And I'm going to say on Linux, Mac, and Windows, the app won't start. Instead, it just shows this really strange whiteboard canvas. I'm going to hit create. Awesome. Well, we're going to come back to this one later and see what the agent did during our triage. But again, this is about protecting your focus, right? This is about focusing on the most important things. This is about using agents for not just writing code, but all the meta work around code, around maintaining a project, around making that project high quality, and understanding the signals from your customers. Back to you, Mario.
Perfect. We'll get to that one then. So hopefully you're seeing there how we're transforming then GitHub. We talked about automations. We're transforming from an assistant to a collaborator with agents overall. The next thing, and we showed this in the keynote, we probably won't demo it today, is 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃. But the reason why I wanted to highlight it today is the fact that now because GitHub is multi-model, it's multi-agent, and it's multi-surface, we have the ability to give you a second kind of set of, if you think about a developer workflow, I'm all constantly going to go and say, hey, Evan, what do you think about this? And he's going to go on 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗃 with me about it. Now you could have that same feeling with these agents as well. And 𝗦𝗲𝗃 has two modes that it operates on. It operates as an advisor, but it could also go ahead and operate as a critic too. So we're going to expand more and more of these modalities that you already do with other humans, but we're going to bring that into this human and agent collaboration as well. So please play with it. It's in the Copilot CLI, and it's also now in the GitHub app. I use it constantly, mainly on critique mode. Sometimes I want to be saving tokens, and I use it in assistance mode as well. OK, so the last demo, and we'll come back into what we just did on the triage. The last demo is really about bringing in that quality. Remember, we say surfaces, runtime, automation, quality, intelligence, and enterprise. We won't get to the last two today, but we want to just show you a little bit of what we're doing in security and what we're doing in review as well. So go ahead, and we can fold both into one. We got 5 minutes.
So I'm going to give you all a little bit of the inside baseball here, OK? I was going, last night, this morning to, prep again and do my final run-through of this demo. And, I showed you this ability for the Copilot app to be an orchestrator, right? If I, kind of encounter, hey, suddenly it's not just enough for me to work in this one repo. I now need to go and make changes in an SDK and a core runtime as well. This session creation tool is super useful for that. It gives me this kind of tree hierarchy of all of the sub-sessions, all of the code changes in other repos that I'm managing. And I tried to do this with cloud support in the app, and it didn't work. And I sent a message to Enrique, and I was like, hey, did we do this? And he was like, we forgot. This happens. We're doing like crazy stuff right before launch and getting things out the door. So Enrique jumped on this, and he put this PR together. I want to review this PR. And I want to make sure, hey, we didn't rush it in, right? everything we do with an extremely high degree of quality. And we want to make sure it's secure. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that URL, go back to the GitHub app, and I can hit Command-K and paste that in. And automatically, Copilot knows, hey, I want to create a session for this so I can start reviewing it. So it's going to load up the diff. It's going to give me the ability to start adding comments in here. So this is a private conversation with the agent. I can ask questions about this code. They don't go to github.com. This is just for me and the agent to build a shared understanding of the code. But that's not the most interesting part. We have, /review for code review. We have /security review for security. And so I can compose these things together through these multi-session workflows. I can also use multiple models, right? I can run multi-model code review using Gemini, using Claude, right? Using GPT. They don't all agree with each other. They have different training distributions. And when you use these multiple models, you get the best possible results. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, I want you to orchestrate 2 different review sessions together. So use the create session tool. And in the first session, I want you to use this branch and do a multi-model code review. So use the code review agent and use Gemini, GPT-5.5, and Sonnet 4.6. In the second session that you create, also pull this branch. And then I want you to run the security review and also do that using multi-model sub-agents. Finally, when you're done with all of this and you get messages back on this main thread, I want you to rubber duck that output. Really be critical of it. And then I want you to give me your final recommendation. If you want, you can even go ahead and post comments to the pull request. So I'm going to hit enter. And in just a couple of seconds here, I know that was a lot, so I'm going to talk through the things that I asked it to do. So first I said, we want to create some new sessions, right? So we're going to create these sub-sessions. One session that's going to be entirely focused on code review, code quality, and then a second session entirely focused on security review, using that security sub-agent that we've built in collaboration with GitHub Advanced Security. Finally, when those 2 sessions are done, they can send messages back into my parent session, right? And when that message comes back into my parent session, it's going to run that rubber duck, right? It's going to give it that final round of critique before it requires my attention, right? This helps make sure that when I come back to this session, I've done everything that I can to ensure the feedback it's giving to me is actually helpful and legit, right? All the models agree with each other. The rubber duck agrees. The security review has found the issues. And so this workflow helps me and the team get so much done at a high degree of quality much faster.
All right, let's show the logo one that we just kicked off on the automation.
Oh, the automation.
Let's see how that went.
Yeah, let's see how it went.
Probably run already, right?
My work. I'm going to go ahead and open this one up. Let's see.
Has it done it yet, or?
Hasn't kicked off yet. Nope.
Okay.
So we need to give it another minute.
Okay. Makes sense. But let's go back into it, and then hopefully we could close. But hopefully you can see then how you could have the agent kick off not only a code review and uphold your quality, the skills that we utilize across all of this, but also security as well. So we're not just leaving you hanging there by coding. We're actually taking the hand to and helping you with it. So we have, from a trust perspective, we're also doing a lot with many of our partners. You see Sonar in there. They do a lot on code quality. You see Ender, that's the security as well. We show you a little bit of Mirror. We have Launch Darkly, so like that you could deploy to production, also feeling safe as well. And this then brings us back at the beginning to that agent-native engineering system, and where you could actually turn your ideas, your intent, all the way to production with the power of agents in a human and agent collaboration. So with that, we want to thank you for everything, and thanks, Evan, for all the live demos. We wanted to do this in a way that was engaging for you. All right, we got 30 seconds, so did any of them finish of the code reviews? Just to show it, I just didn't want to.
Let's see.
If you go back. Oh, it's still going. You're going?
It's, It's not done. It's not done yet, but we can check in on what they're doing, right?
There you go. Awesome.
So,
Matt,
oh, there we
thank
go.
you.
We've got our security review sub-agents are running, right? 3 of these with Gemini.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.